Hello, everyone. Jason Hagholm here, and we are back with another episode of Jason and the Gentleman. And to do this show, as always, I need the gentleman of mixed martial arts, the gentleman Josh Hill, who is now dabbling in the worlds of sports psychology. I mean, Josh, first of all, congratulations on getting, I guess, the sports psychology business up. But first of all, how long have you been working on it, and what does this entail?
Yeah, thanks, man. I've been working on it for. I remember I got really interested in it when I got injured. When I tore my pec and I was out for like 6 months and I couldn't really train. So I just started reading up on psychology and something I felt that I always lacked going into fights. Like I just had so much performance anxiety, and I think it did hinder a lot of my performances, even ones I won. So I just kind of wanted to learn more about it, and I just kind of got hooked on it. And then I enrolled myself back on some online schooling, and it took me about a year and a half to complete the program. I think I could have got it done. If I didn't have a little toddler running around, I would have got it done a lot quicker. But yeah, man. So yeah, I've done that. And I kind of put a business plan together and what I want to do with people, not just fighters, all athletes. And yeah, man, I'm pretty pumped for it. I want to be a mental performance coach and help people, deal with the struggles that, don't go, they don't get talked about that much, really. It's always about the physical aspect and not so much the mental, which is, I think, even more important.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in this day and age of mental health being important, obviously, especially with fighting, where it's pretty much you and yourself. And I mean, we saw that this whole past week pretty much with Nick Diaz, and that's a guy that's always, I guess, feeling some sort of anxiety or performance anxiety, regardless of what it may be. But it's always an important aspect. And I mean, I guess there's lots of opportunity. I mean, I've already seen on your Facebook post, tons of people already hitting you up like, hey, can we talk and stuff like that. So you've got a client, you got a list of clients down the line.
Yeah. I mean, that's good, man. I'm happy about it. So I just, I was so nervous about doing it because I want to do a good job with it. Right. So I kind of always made an excuse to kind of, next week I'll do this, next week I'll do it. But I just said, I got to do it. Just kind of like what I'm learning and teaching other people. I just got to do it and kind of face, not have those fears and just kind of get right into it and see what works, see what doesn't, and try to make it the best I can for people.
What's the best, I guess, now that you've done all the schooling and, set up this business, what's the best thing you learned in the process of learning about, I guess, being a sports psychologist?
Oh, man. There's so many things, but I would say of all things, it's of actually how common this is, and that I'm not alone by any means, of having these doubts come in your mind and fears and anxiety and things like that. So I think that is probably the biggest thing. Just learning of how many people, deal with this kind of thing on the regular and how they deal with it and whatnot. So I think it's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's not alone, especially when dealing with mental health. So, well, obviously, I wish you all the best with this, Josh. I mean, as you said off air, add another thing to your plate. Obviously, you got to get some training in. You're trying to get a fight here with Bellator to wrap up the year, and now you're out here trying to help coach people through their mental anxieties in sports performance.
Yeah. I mean, add this to the, I teach people, the physical part of it all the time about how to fight and exercise and whatnot, and training, and then my own training. And then having 2 kids run around and it's a lot, but it's good. It's good, man. I like to be busy.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, well, busy isn't the worst thing in the world. So once again, wish you all the best with that. And as we transition over to what was, I'd say, one of the better UFC pay-per-views of this past year, UFC 266, where we had, really 3 main events. The main event for the featherweight title, the women's flyweight title, and of course Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawlor. And I guess first of all, everyone was making this big deal, especially with Nick's interview with Brett Nakamoto of ESPN. Nick, he's saying some weird outlandish stuff. I'm like, to me, that's always Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz always is a guy that came off like that, always hated fighting, but he was really good at it. And you know who also this past week said always hated fighting? George St. Pierre. Yeah. So one of the greatest of all time always hated it. So I think people maybe were blowing it a little out of proportion. Maybe it's because some people haven't seen Nick since in the limelight doing interviews like that, and since he stepped away due to suspension in 2015.
Yeah.
But I think we were making this little bit a mountain out of a molehill. Like, that's just Nick Diaz. He's an MMA unicorn.
That he is, and I was so pumped to see this and his return, and I'm such a big fan. He is a very, very tough kind of, guy to get a read on, really, of what he's actually thinking and whatnot, because he does have a very hard time expressing his thoughts and opinions and emotions, in a more like conscious way, like we're doing now. I mean, there's always just kind of like, what did he say? You know what I mean? There's always he's always had that. And so I can see where you're coming from about that, because it's always Nick Diaz. He's always like that. But I did feel a little bit, just the things he was saying about, like, this fight wasn't even, supposed to, well, I don't know why this fight's happening, things like that. And didn't want to be back in this earlier, this quicker. He was saying some things that was kind of leading up to it, and I was like, and then seeing him at the presser and like the weigh-ins, it didn't really look like, I mean, he's obviously older, he's matured now, so he might not have that crazy, dramatic Diaz style thing, right? But it just seemed like he was kind of out of place a little bit. And that was just kind of the read I got on it. It just seemed like he wasn't really embracing the moment of being there and being back. You think somebody that has been out for 6 years, they'd have that, like, that energy, feeling back. It just kind of looked like he was like, but I mean, that could just be him, you know what I mean? But yeah, and as far as the fight, well, we can talk about the fight.
Well, honestly, I thought he was the biggest story just from his actions, building up to it. And yeah, he was saying he didn't understand why he had to fight Robbie Lawlor. He's like, I've already beat this guy back in 2004. Why do I wanted to fight Kamaru Usman, but I mean, he didn't even attempt to make a cut in weight. Like, they had to move this fight up a full weight class to middleweight. And I don't know if it was just Nick maybe trying to test the waters out of what it's like being back, being in front of cameras. I don't know if he really passed it, but that's just who, to me, Nick Diaz is in that sense. But as the fight happened, honestly, like, thank God it was the Robbie Lawlor fight. If this was Kamaru Usman, this could have been a lot worse, because I think how he started the fight, like, he definitely looked a lot older with his speed of his punches.
Yeah.
Father Time's always undefeated. He started the fight out with a spinning back kick, which is something like you'd never expect from Nick Diaz, but then again, it's Nick Diaz. You don't know what you're going to expect. He's so unpredictable. But as the fight got going, he kind of started to find that Diaz style where he comes in, he takes a couple shots, he rips the body and then goes to the head. And I thought he won the first round. The second round, I thought Robbie Lawlor won as Robbie got things going and, was always proven to be durable. And then early in the third round, Robbie connects, drops Nick, and Nick just, I guess, didn't feel like fighting anymore. That was pretty much the way it went. And I hate people calling him a quitter, because I just think it's Nick Diaz. Like, he's the one guy that is above all that talk. I think Chael Sonnen put it best. Nick wanted to fight. He had a fight. He had enough.
Yeah. Agreed. And yeah, he did not. I mean, I've seen. I mean, this is why social media is just bullshit, because I've seen pictures of him and videos of him previous to this month's past, and he ripped, jacked, 6-pack, looking lean. He didn't look like that in the fight. You know what I mean? And going up to 185, maybe he was, too big to make 170 and look soft. On the flip side of that, I think where people aren't giving enough credit, Lawlor looked ripped, man. He looked like great. Looked like Robbie Lawlor of 10 years ago. Like, what I mean? He was in great shape and put on a great performance. It's usually Diaz starting slow and losing the first round and then gaining momentum as the fight goes on. But that was the opposite in this case. He had probably the best round was his first round. Probably, I think he won as well. And then after that, the fight kind of went downhill for him. Yeah, man. I don't know. It's tough to tell. He did get clipped with the shot, but he got hit with a bunch of those. I know it just on the right spot. It doesn't matter. That would be the one to switch you off or to put you on Queer Street. But yeah, man, it just looked like he just kind of like
he just had enough. You know what? I'll just save myself for another day. Which in a way I commend. I hate the whole, you got to go out in the shield and whatever. Maybe you see it differently being a fighter, but I mean, if you're someone like Nick Diaz, save yourself. If you feel like you can still fight, save yourself for another day or what have you, because obviously He went in there, he had his fun, and he was done. And as he said all week, he really wasn't motivated and didn't like taking those punches from Robbie Lawlor. And who can blame him? I would hate to be on the recipient of another fight against a guy like that. But
you know, 6 years, man, a long time, long.
Oh, for sure.
And his prime years too, really. You know, that they kind of robbed him of his prime years, which is brutal. Imagine, you know, what he could have done in the last 6 years if he was fighting. And that could wear on him too, and it could be a motivational factor, you know. Or maybe, I mean, I for like the last however many years, I just saw that guy partying in Vegas like all the time, man. Like all the time. And that shit will add up, you know, and that'll wear on you in the long run, and things won't work as quickly or as properly, you know, especially if you're a professional athlete at the highest level. You know, those things can kind of add up. And as you get into your late 30s, you know, which he is, you know, they could take a toll on you and slow you down and not recover enough and just, you know, not having that fire and drive to compete like he once did. So, but these are all things we don't know. I'd like to see what happens to him now and what he decides, what he wants to do. I think that'll be the biggest telltale sign of how he wants to go about, whether he's like, okay, I got in there, you know, I'm motivated again to get back to the win column, or is he just like, you know what, like I went in there and I don't feel like doing this anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think we're all waiting to see. Like, it seemed like, you know, he said, I kind of want to fight again. I'll be back. I mean, we don't know when he's going to be back because it's Nick Diaz, and he kind of goes on his own schedule. And when things kind of line up and the moon aligns and everything like that, when we'll see him back. But to your point of, if he gets an opponent going forward that motivates him, that's exactly what Robbie Lawlor was for Nick Diaz. He even said it. Like, he lit a fire under me. I got motivated. I knew this was going to be something I was excited for, and it showed. Like, that was the best Robbie Lawlor we've seen probably since he won the title.
Yeah, or defended it a couple times. Yeah. You look great, man. You look great. You look like he was, like he was so motivated, in great shape, fought like hard, you know, kept the pace on. Diaz stalked him the whole fight, which is something you don't usually see. And we talked about that. We liked this matchup. I liked it because it was both guys.
Did too.
Or, you know, later in their career, you know, Robbie's actually a year older than Nick, I believe, or the same age. And you know, and for Robbie, that's an early loss that you obviously love to get back. You know, you had that loss when you were a kid, basically. He was like 20 years old or whatever he was, or 21 years old. So yeah, I could see that being a motivating for Robbie. As far as Nick, I mean, I think it's a good matchup as far as like I said, age wise and you know, legend status wise type thing. But yeah, he does already have a win over him. Maybe doesn't want that. I mean, you don't think you're jumping right back in there with Usman.
No.
God, no.
Or anyone in the top 5 of that division or anything like
that. Yeah.
Like, for me, you got to find opponents that are just going to stand and do that with Nick Diaz going forward. Like, it's unfortunate Carlos Condit's retired. I'd love to see that again. Yeah. Like, that's the kind of, like, those are the kind of guys I want to see Nick Diaz fight. I don't want to see him anywhere near the top of the division because I think we've kind of seen that time partying off and just father time in general took some stuff away from him, just on his speed, because it wasn't there. That Diaz style that we were so used to seeing, you know, him and that dominant run in Strike Force as their welterweight champion. Like, that was years, like that showed that was 10 years ago for Nick Diaz. So
yeah, I mean, he was never a fast twitch, you know, athlete. You know what I mean? He's like a marathon runner type body build. You know, it's more volume than power and explosiveness. But that being said, the speed definitely showed for sure. He was much slower. And yeah, man, I don't know. We'll see what happens from this, really. But yeah, Condit would have been a great one if he didn't retire. That would have been good. And the Robbie one, like I said before, I think that was a good matchup. You know, before all this, you know, I always thought Masvidal would be kind of cool, and because of the Nate fight they had, you know, and with the big brother, I think that was cool. But I mean, after seeing that, I don't think he would be able to compete with Masvidal at this point. I mean, unless he, you know, that was just like a get back in there, you know, go through the shit and you know, come out more motivated and get back into great shape. But I just don't see it.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I know Carlos Condit, he literally like just retired 2 weeks ago. Who's to say he can't unretire if he calls him for that fight? Because I mean, that fight makes makes a lot of sense for both guys. And it's kind of like a legends division, which I don't want to see in MMA. But like, if Nick Diaz is going to just fight guys that he fought before, like I'm okay with that, because we don't want to see Nick get really hurt or have the sport, do serious damage for a sport that he hates already or doesn't enjoy. But I just want to see him go up there and put on shows and fights like that, because legends divisions never work. Just look at Bellator or Yama when they had that one show. But yeah, that's where I guess the last really thing is, I mean, now that you're a sports psychologist, what would you be talking to Nick about? Because that's just a cat that I'm sure there's tons of conversations you could be having with.
Oh man, there's not one thing I could pinpoint on that one. Like, there'd have to be like, and I'm not a sports psychologist. I didn't know.
Oh, sorry.
Well, a performance coach. Yeah.
Performance coach.
Yeah. In the realm of sports psychology, that's for sure. But yeah, there's not one thing that I could just say, or pinpoint. There'd have to be abundance of things. Basically, the biggest thing I think would be motivation. Whether or not you're still motivated to do this. You can always train, you can always spar in the gym, you can always coach your brother and all the guys there and whatnot. But do you want to go through this process again? And do you want to deal with, what comes from being the superstar, which he is in the realm of MMA? Those are all questions that need to be, talked about and answered, and only he can answer that. So that, amongst other things, that would be one of the main issues.
And I think that's just with any sport, really, is just handling the limelight, right? Like, I just watched the 30 for 30 on the 86 Mets, and it's like Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden, like biggest stars on that baseball team, and they just couldn't handle the fame of it, and their life fell down. And it's not just those guys, but anyone really. There's so many. It's such a rare breed of an athlete. Like, that's why I have so much respect for LeBron James, like great basketball player, but since 18 years old, pretty much the limelight's, you're supposed to be the next great basketball. And he's done that. He's lived up to it. And he's really had no issues on and off the court, right? Mm-hmm. So that's such a thing that I mean, I can't even imagine how you go through it. You see it. And we see it even in MMA, like Jon Jones, biggest star in the world. And just, you think every time he's back on the right track, something derails him off that, and including this past week, which we will get to. But
yeah, man, you know what? All sports, like I said, they all come with these types of things, these type of issues. But I think the individual sports are even that much hard. I can't take just days off and park my ass on the bench, or I can't just let my goalie bail me out. If I'm having an off day, it's like when you're fighting, when you're playing tennis, when you're golfing, whatever, it's all on you, and there's no one else to look at or blame. It's all on you, right? So those things can definitely, I think that's why you see a lot of fighters having a lot of issues, and probably why they got bad raps from mainstream media, as far as like just like barbarians that, you know what I mean? But majority of them are very smart, educated, nice people. It just, I think, those pressures come with the shit. Did you watch that Untold, the latest from the tennis player, Fish?
Yeah, I did. That was.
Hey, we talked about that. Yeah, that was good, man. You see, like, dealing with, how he's kind of always in the shadow of
Andy Roddick,
Roddick, and then he kind of made waves and made his own thing, and then he just kind of couldn't deal with the pressures that kind of come with it, right? So I thought that was very fascinating.
Yeah, those are fantastic, these little Netflix ones that they're put. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of things, especially in the individual sports, where you have to be yourself able to handle it, but you need the right people around you. And I think Nick has good people around him. I just think that's just himself. Like, he'd rather be an introvert. He's just an introvert. He'd rather stay away from anything, go in there. If like the fights weren't filmed, that'd be the best thing for him. But unfortunately, that's not how this business works. But there's 10 million other athletes that have success. They make a switch, make a change. They get the 10 wrong people in there, and then it takes them 10, 15 years to get back to where they once were.
Yeah. I mean, the Jon Jones one, I don't know him or like anybody really close to him, so I don't know who like his support system is and whatnot. But yeah, man, it just seems like he can't, he just can't kind of keep out of the shit, And I don't know what the story is there. What's happening?
I don't either. We will definitely get to it, but like Nick obviously was to me, one of the bigger stories going into this, especially with his interviews. But all in all, I guess we will see him again. But I just hope he finds peace personally, because
if it's a win-win for me. I mean, I'm a huge Diaz fan, especially Nick. But if he said, you know what, I came back and I just don't want to do this anymore. I mean, I'd be cool with that. I'd be like, you know what, man, awesome. You had a great career, and that's so cool. It sucks that I'm never going to see him fight again, but I'd rather him say that and enjoy, fight after fighting. But if he came back and said, you know what, that motivated me to get back in there, and I was humiliated, and I lost, and blah blah blah, and now I want to get back in there. I want to be I want to get back my 6 years, and then I would be like, yo, awesome too. So it just kind of depends on what he wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, if he called it a career, at least he's going out on his own. It's not an injury. It's not the commission suspending him for too long where he's had enough. He's calling in his career. But, I mean, a motivated Nick Diaz is a dream for the UFC. Yeah, I mean, even if they made the Usman fight, I don't think I'd want to see it because I'm afraid what could happen to Nick Diaz. But if you're Kamaru Usman, you're happier than a pig in his own filth, because you're getting probably the biggest payday you've ever seen, seeing Nick Diaz across the octagon from you.
Yeah, man, those fights are those are the best ones. Fights that are the what comes with that person, like the eyes on that person, and if they are an easier fight per se than some of the other people in the division, then that's the best of both worlds. That's the fights that people want, right? I'm sure Usman would love that. They said, okay, Diaz, off of 6 years of layoff and a loss, he gets a title shot, he'd be all over it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's I think just an example, I think if you see look at my Bellator bantamweight division, all the guys there, there's a whole bunch of killers, but why is there people always calling out Gallagher? Because I think he's a good fighter, but I think out of all those other guys, I think he's the easiest fight, but probably has the biggest name because of his Irish following and whatnot. So those are the fights. I think for me, the last fight I had with Stotts was kind of the worst because I know how good he was, but he wasn't quite that big name yet, So it was a tough spot to be in. So I can see why. That's just fighting. You want to take the easiest fights with the biggest name always.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about trying to find the fight, cash the check, so you can come out and come out of the sport with a little bit of money to your name, because obviously you want to keep fighting, you want to fight, you like it, but there's no money guaranteed, really, as we've talked about 10,000 times on this show. So you want to get those big fights, and I could see the UFC making that fight, honestly, because
there's no way to do it now, though. There's no way.
You never know. Honestly, the way this has gone, if Usman goes over Covington, I mean, sure, you have Leon Edwards, but how many pay-per-views are you selling with that? 0.
You'd have to have Nick to come back and get a win, though. There's no way they can get him a title fight off a loss. And
this is the UFC, Josh. Title shot off. We just had an interim title created out of thin air in the heavyweight division.
That's true. Any shit can happen. Who knows? But if anything, then you became Robbie Lawlor. There's your title shot.
Exactly. But Nick Diaz is more interesting to the people, even though, I mean, I'd love Lawlor too. That'd be cool. But I know they wouldn't do that. They would definitely do Nick Diaz, say, end of the first quarter, early second quarter, 2022. But I mean, it's all about what makes sense for them to sell a pay-per-view. Really, that's all it comes down to. Then the smart logic you are putting on there, but it doesn't apply in MMA. Smart logic like that doesn't really work out half the time. But as we move on to the women's flyweight title fight, I mean, everyone was saying, Lauren Murphy, she really doesn't have a chance. And I thought she handled herself perfectly during the media, in interviews, and at the press conferences. Look, I don't really have, in your eyes, a lot of a chance, but I'm just going to go out there and fight my fight. And I thought that's the right strategy to have. Yeah. And then she went in there, and unfortunately, I don't know what her coaching was telling her, that she was doing a good job in certain aspects, maybe trying to get her some sort of positive. But you want to be honest. But honestly, once the first round was over, Lauren looked broken, and she had another 3 rounds to go.
Yeah, you could tell that she just could not get a step on Valentina at all. She could not figure out her timing, her distance, her movement, her mixing up takedowns too. with her striking. So like she just was one step ahead of her from the bell to the end of the fight. And yeah, as far as the coaching in the corner, I mean, you know what? I've said this many times. I always want someone there I don't want a cheerleader. I want a coach. I want somebody that's going to be honest with me and tell me exactly what I'm doing wrong, what I need to do, if we're down, if we're up, whatever. And I get that you're trying to be positive. You're trying to keep your spirits alive, but at the same time, you have to be honest and truthful. And that, from what I could hear, that wasn't really coming from the corner. So, you know, and I guess it's also hard when I think isn't her husband. I think it's her coach or her boyfriend or something.
I'm not sure. I know her husband is like a BJJ guy. I don't know. He's a fighter, but he does involve himself in the world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But and in that situation, you probably want him out of the way because there's just too many mixed feelings in that side of things. But the coaching, I just thought was, oh, you're doing great in the clinch. No, you're not. Like anyone with eyes can see you are not doing well in the clinch. Yeah. You have a fighter that's clearly lost hope, which
that's not good, right? Because like you said that you're doing great in the clinch, and then when you're in a fight too, it's hard to think of other like what's happening. You think like 30 seconds goes by and it's only like literally 5 seconds. You know what I mean? Like you're just in the moment, and things are happening. So when you send somebody, a coach, and I hear that voice saying, you're doing great in the clinch, I'm going to go into that next round and be like, hey, I need to get back to that clinch because I was doing great there, even though now the truth is I wasn't. So I'm going to put myself back in this shitty situation and continue to lose the fight. So that's the issues that you have to, the importance of a good coach.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want an honest coach. Like James Krause on this card was very honest with one of his fighters. Yeah. Like we lost that round. We got to make these adjustments, go after here and change. Like you're honest with someone. I think you want someone to be honest. Like in heavyweight boxing, Teddy Atlas was known as one of the best coaches. Like people say he willed Michael Moore to win a heavyweight title off of Vander Holyfield because of what he was saying. Like you want someone that's going to be honest and motivate you. Some may look at it as harsh, but I'd rather have that than, hey, we're doing great. Like, this isn't college, pee-wee sports where, an orange slice can be given after the fact, right? Like you want someone to be honest and truthful with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've cornered fighters where in the corner, they've said, I'm done. And there's also a difference that, if they've been sitting there taking a punishment and beating and there's no way they're winning this fight, that's different. But if they're just tired and they're actually winning the fight or very close to the fight, then that's a different thing. And so you have to know when to, push them and to, say the right things and not just be, like I said, a cheerleader or a yes man or just somebody that's there just to kind of be a groupie. You gotta be honest with your guys, man, and girls. So it's, that's where it's like, finding the right coach is important.
Yeah, and I feel bad for Lauren because, everyone's going to be, you didn't have a great performance, whatever. But, I mean, look, she at least fought her way to earn that title shot. It wasn't just like, like you win one fight, you're in. She won 5 in a row. Yeah. That's now snapped. But, I mean, Valentina Shevchenko, to me, is maybe the best technically sound fighter in MMA, man or woman. Like, she's just a machine out there. Like, what she does, she calculates, she breaks you down, and then she may play with her food for a bit, but when she wants to go in for the kill, she'll go in for the kill. Like, that punch combo she threw when she wanted to end the fight, it was like something out of Mortal Kombat. Like, she just hit the button so many times, you're trying to go in there and end it, and she went out there and closed the show. And honestly, I don't know what we're waiting for. Obviously, maybe after Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena, but they have to make that third fight. Like, there's no one really left in the UFC in their women's division above 115.
No, yeah, man, she's cleared it out, really. She is head and shoulders above everybody in that division right now, and that's kind of tough when you get a champ that's that good, just wipes everybody out, and all the contenders are done. I mean, you look at like Jessica Andrade had a big win over Cynthia this past weekend, and that she just knocked off another potential contender in Cynthia. And she, Valentina's already beat Andrade. She's beaten now Lauren Murphy. She's beaten that Caitlin
Chukagian. She's beaten Jennifer Maia.
Who's the other one?
I think there's another one, maybe.
Joanna.
Yeah, Joanna did come up
Came
to
up.
125, which was a mistake.
Yeah, but man, she's. I mean, and yeah, the Nunes is the other. It's kind of like two dominant women right now in the UFC, and it's those two, and they've unfortunately fought twice, and she's come off the losing decision on both, but they were very, very good, close, contested fights. It's like, it shows 2 L's on paper, but like, every round was close in those fights, and it's not like she was blown out at all. So I know going into making a third fight is kind of difficult because she is down 2. But I guess you could say the same thing with like Holloway and
Volkanovski. Yeah.
If that comes to fruition too, just because of how close they were.
I think right now, if they made a third fight between Nunes and Shevchenko, I think the itch is there more than ever before. Yeah. And as your points are, like Shevchenko's down 0-2, and if she wins this, it's 1-2. But just the run they've been on since they've been separate, like Valentina's been killing it at 125. Nunes has been killing it both 135, 145. There is no 145 anymore right now. So I think people would be more interested in seeing those two dominant women meet again, whatever the weight class may be. I'd love to see if Nunes could get down to 125. I don't think she can, but I'd love to see it. Yeah. But if they make the fight, that's what I think we want to see, because that's kind of what the appeal of the UFC was back in its big boom period. Was look at these big time fights that boxing's not giving us. Well, MMA could give us that, and it'd be one of the biggest women's fights of all time, like right up there with when Cyborg fought Gina Carano back in Strikeforce.
Yeah. I mean, that one was like kind of the one that put women on the map, really. But yeah, this, I think, it'd definitely be the biggest female fight in this modern era for sure.
Yeah, so I will see what happens. Obviously, Nunes has to get through Juliana Pena, who, much like Lauren Murphy, I think she's saying the right thing. She's not being overconfident. I think she's being super level confident, and I think could pose some problems. But I mean, that's still 2 months away, so we wait and see. But as then we transfer over to the main event, which to me was maybe the best featherweight title fight in the history of the UFC. Like, that was an unbelievable fight.
Aldo Mendez.
Yeah, I'll go there.
But you're right. It was
a fantastic, like, that third round was unbelievable, where Ortega got the takedown, and then how quickly he jumped full guard to pull the guillotine. Somehow Volkanovski escapes, and then he gets nearly caught in the triangle again when you think, okay, now he's done. And he somehow once again escapes, turning purple and everything like that, and then just unloads some brutal ground and pound where Ortega's corner literally had to scrape him up off the mat. And I don't even know how Ortega was able to answer the questions the doctor's asking him. I feel like he was just guessing what the numbers were that were put in front of his swollen eye. But honestly, what a fight, what heart, what determination. And round 3 comes in as a round of the year candidate, and it's rare you get a pay-per-view with 2 round of the year candidates. You had round 3 there, and then round 1 of Marlon Moraes and Rob Dvalishvili. Like, you don't see that on one card.
No, you don't. And yeah, I feel for Marlon, man. Just going off topic with the main event, but yeah, I think I called this fight. I called it before. I said, Marlon's got to finish him in the first. If it goes past the first, I think Merab will just kind of keep that pressure and wear Marlon down. And this close from the fight. If you had a different referee, it might have been called. You know what I mean? Yeah. So close to finish him. Dropped him, I don't know how many times. He's on his feet, running away, wobbling, and then Marlon emptied the gas tank trying to finish him, and then literally was done after that. And when Marlon, it just seems, especially as of late, it just seems like he's like this, and then once he hits that, he just plummets. And he just has nothing left. And that's what happened. And you could see on the ground, he just kind of wasn't defending anything. I think just out of just sheer exhaustion. Yeah, it sucks for him because, again, so close to getting that win and then having it turn back like that. But yeah, tough goal.
I mean, I feel bad for Marlon Moraes. He is on such a losing skid. But once again, the guys he's losing to are Sandhagen, Font, and now Dvalishvili. All guys who are like in the running to pretty much fight for that bantamweight title. Now that there's going to be an interim title, which is probably going to be Sandhagen and Jan after Aljamain Sterling wasn't medically cleared. But I feel bad for Marlon, and I'm just, and to your point, like, he had the first round, he needs these first rounds. But if you're a fighter that can't do anything in the second round or empty the gas tank too much, I mean, that's a problem. That's where you got to make some sort of a change, right, Josh? Like,
yeah, I mean,
your first rounds
I
are
think,
great, but this is more than one round.
yeah, and I mean, I think with that particular fight, I think he was obviously prepared to go 3 with Merab. He knows he's not an idiot. He knows what the guy does, and he just pushes the pace and wrestles and takes you down. I think he just figured he had him out, and he was so close to finishing it. But if he just kind of doesn't went out and adrenaline dump too, when you're so close to, I've had that where I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be over. And then the guy's still there and like, oh my God, you just have this dump. But yeah, I mean, I've said before, I think ever since Marlon left Mark Henry, I've seen, the decline of his game, where a guy that was a murderer for years and just beating everybody. And this close from winning the bantamweight UFC bantamweight title. He just been on a skid, man. So yeah, it's unfortunate for him. He's got to do something, make some changes as far as, energy management, coaching wise, or I don't know. He's got to make some changes, but
yeah, he's got to make some changes. Once again, I won't harp on him totally because that is a murderer's row of 135ers in the UFC that he's been in there
very
with.
True. Yeah, very true.
But I mean, he was World Series of Marlon in that first round when he had Merab really hurt. I was like, oh my God, World Series of Marlon's back. Like, this is the moment he needs to really turn him around and see what his gas tank's like. Well, unfortunately, as we said, it ran out. But Merab Dvalishvili, like a guy who survived that.
Surviving it. And
yeah, go on.
Yeah, like, because, especially, I mean, that's just knowing that, okay, you just took friggin' 10-8 round, most likely, you got dropped and you were barely alive. And, you know that this guy tends to fade and he emptied it there. And then to go out and just go right back and not just kind of wait and, be hesitant, because he could have just kind of, stay on the outside and wait a little bit and get his marbles back. But he just pushed the pace right away. And he knew that would break him. And it did, man. And so, yeah, that's some toughness right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Tons of toughness. And, for Merab too, like, this is a guy that, as you said, he's tough. He weathered it, but then landed 130 unanswered shots in that second round. Like, that's a crazy output for a guy known as the Machine. And I think this is the fight that he needed. We knew how great his wrestling was and his grappling, but if you out-grapple someone and just hold someone down and can't get a finish, like, it's good, nice to get a win in the UFC, but it's not going to, we need to see you. Now he's had his breakthrough, and I think he's in that running there with, like, a Dillashaw, a Sandhagen, and Rob Font, and now I put Merab Dvalishvili in that top 4 of guys that should be in line to fight for a bantamweight title. I think Dvalishvili needs another one. It's kind of going to be tricky, especially since his teammate is the champion. If Aljo can go in there and fight again whenever he does. I know we have the interim fight, but I think I'm just very proud of Merab. Like, this guy had been in the UFC for a long time, still has not been finished in his career, by TKO or KO, and kept that streak alive. And really, I think, put himself out there and a part of this Georgian MMA wave that we keep talking about.
Yeah, this is a big win. His biggest win for sure. Biggest name, biggest comeback. The way he did it too, right? So yeah, it's huge. I don't know who they got kind of lined up next for him. I think, I heard they're doing Aldo and Font was potential, and then now with the Sterling out, I mean, maybe Sandhagen gets put in there to face Jan, and then you got.
I think it has to be Sandhagen. I think Sandhagen, if anything, deserves to be in line for
TJ when he's back. I don't know. Who knows? There's a lot of
I think TJ's hurt, so Sandhagen seems to be okay, and that show is like in about a month's time, so they need a body. So Corey Sandhagen, he lost a pretty close decision, so I wouldn't be upset with him being in there to be in line. And we know Font's now fighting Jose Aldo, at least lined up for towards the end of the year. So, I mean, and Jose Aldo's still in the mix, right? Like, so, I mean, that shows how deep that division is.
Yeah. It's stacked, bro. Bantamweights.
I mean, there was talk today, I guess we can do Dvalishvili, maybe Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I'd be down with that. That'd be a very good technical fight, and then get to see where Cruz is at right now. And obviously if you win that, I mean, with the legendary name like Cruz, that's a big one. But
big one, yeah.
as we transition back to the main event of the featherweight title,
yeah.
I mean, props to Volkanovski. Like, you know what? Like, I don't understand how people can just hate on someone, be like, he's not the champion because you didn't agree with the scorecard being read. I thought we both agree he won the last 3 rounds of that second Holloway fight, and he just doesn't get the credit. I think finally he should get the credit as being one of the top featherweights in the world, like which a lot of us knew, but he finally had that kind of performance to show not only how good he is technically, but to survive those chokes like anyone else would have been put out in that scenario like that.
Yeah, man. He's good, man. He's a short, compact bull, and he just keeps coming. His cardio is amazing. I was very, very impressed with that. But his striking is awesome. His wrestling, and then those subs, like the way Ortega jumped on that guillotine for actually a mounted guillotine, and it was tight, man. You could see, literally when he's doing like squirming like this, just to get inches or centimeters just to move, to keep breathing and to keep the blood flow going to your brain. And so he did just enough to get to reverse the position, then got put in the triangle, which was super, super scary, if you're a Volk fan, because that was tight. But again, did the right things and didn't get, overwhelmed and make a panic decision. And show why he's a champ, and then the opposite, credit to Ortega. And this guy just nonstop, just like literally just like his Holloway fight where he got battered for 4 rounds. No quit though, just keeps coming and always attacking, always fighting. So yeah, just great fight.
Well, I think if I was Ortega, I'd have been like, oh my God, it's deja vu again. I'm in a championship fight. My eye is swollen shut. They're going to stop this. So when he answered those questions, I was, first of all, impressed. Like I have a feeling he was totally guessing, or someone was whispering him the numbers the doctor's showing to him. But how he closed in that 5th round, like a lot of judges gave him the 5th. And like if he had maybe another minute left in the fight, like the flurry he put on, he connected on Volkanovski, did hurt him. Like he could have had maybe the biggest upset or the biggest comeback win in recent UFC history if he had maybe that more time. Unfortunately, time was the enemy for him.
Yeah, I mean, he emptied the gas tank. He left it all in there, and you can't ask a fighter to do any more than that. He literally gave it his all and didn't leave anything back. And after a fight, you should feel exhausted if you go the full thing. You should feel dead because you should have to leave it all in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a tremendous fight. I don't know if it'll win Fight of the Year, but it's got to be at least in the conversation for Fight of the Year for 2021. Yeah. There's been a lot of great fights this year. I would throw it in the conversation as well. And, as we said, Volk comes through and finally puts the big showing that I think he's really been looking for in the UFC. And I guess we're kind of waiting for eventually it to be Holloway Volkanovski 3, but Holloway's got to get through Yair Rodriguez on November 13th.
Yeah. So we kind of have that situation again, right? Where if Yair wins, then, you got kind of a clear cut contender there beating Holloway. But if Holloway wins, I mean, who else is there to put in there right now other than him, really?
Yeah. I think that's what we're all waiting for. I think people were like, why did they even make that fight? But I guess they tried to make it once before and it fell through. They're going to try again. And here we are. I mean, it'll be a great striking battle with two crazy good strikers. I mean, it excites me, but I think we're all expecting Holloway to win and fight Volk for the 3rd time because a lot of people still believe, Holloway's the best featherweight and maybe one of the best fighters in the UFC. So I can't wait for that. But that's why they have the fights. I mean, we can never discredit Yair Rodriguez. Yeah. My last thing about UFC 266 is if a fighter misses weight for any reason, just look at Dan Hooker and Haqparast there. 2 guys that literally got their visas at the beginning of the week in different countries, parts of the world, made it to Vegas on Thursday, cut weight, and made it on point. I can't think of any 2 more people that are professionals in mixed martial arts than Dan the Hangman Hooker and, of course, Nasrat Haqparast. I mean, I don't want to hear any excuse of, I couldn't make weight because of X when these guys had to go from across the world to make it to Vegas and cut weight literally within 24 hours.
Yeah, man. That's what they just professionals, right? And obviously they were in tremendous shape before this week and probably had their weight in check. To be able to do that, because like I said, flying that close to having to weigh in, you retain water for sure. At least I do. When I flew to Russia, I remember I got off the plane and I was like, oh my God, like I gained like 6 pounds or something like that. But then, after the day, it was all kind of gone. I just, get out of your system, your body's just retaining it. But yeah, that's something you have to deal with that close to weigh in. So obviously they were in great shape and had their weight in check. So yeah, it's props to those guys.
Props to those guys. It was a pretty solid fight. This undercard had some good stuff. Chris Daukaus made a statement in the heavyweight division with a second round knockout over Shamil Abdurakhimov. We had a Diaz disciple, Nick Maximov, get his first UFC win. A guy I think that's going to really go places in that light heavyweight division, who last year fought in the Contender Series at heavyweight, weighing 209, just so he could get a shot in front of Dana in the UFC. So that was the positive of being a friend of the Diaz brothers. But Martin Sano, that was a negative, getting punched in the face and getting knocked out in 15 seconds by Matt Semmelsberger.
Yeah, that kind of sucks. But
yeah, it was the high and low end of being a Diaz disciple. But and I mean, we started the card with Jonathan Pierce, known as JSP, getting a second round submission over Omar Morales. And I said to myself, there's no way a guy named JSP can lose on a weekend when GSP goes into the UFC Hall of Fame. And thankfully, Jonathan Pierce came through. Jonathan Pierce, also one of the guys, the rare people in MMA today, that his last fight fell through because his opponent, Gabriel Benitez, missed weight. And he just said, no, I'm not accepting the contract. He missed weight. He missed out. I'll see you another day.
Yeah, man. And I respect that, that there was a contract for a reason and a weight for a reason. And that's why we sign it to be in these boundaries of to make the rule set appropriate. I mean, a lot of circumstances are at play there. Like, do you want to take the risk to get more money? I mean, you shouldn't. That's why I don't agree with the show and win. You know what I mean? So that kind of puts the element in there. And yeah, and also just how bad you want to fight too. It's like, yes, I really want to fight, but that's now, am I making the right decision? Because this guy's going to be way bigger than me, and that's going to affect, it's so there's a lot of decisions that play, but I do respect guys that do that. They stick to their guns and say, nope, you miss weight. This is the contract. I'm on weight. You're not. Fights up.
It's just so rare today in MMA. I really respect it. When I saw that when that happened back in the month of May, I was like, oh, okay. But I respect it. Like, yeah, he went out there. Pierce did. He did what he had to do. Cut the weight, made the weight, and his opponent did not. He's like, well, you know what? I'll see you another day. Find me another opponent. I showed I'm professional. Get me someone that's going to be professional. I mean, Omar Morales was. And he went up there and got a second round submission.
Yeah.
So,
or give me a bigger penalty. You know what I mean? That's what we always talk about. Like, give me 70% of your purse. Yeah. And at these lower, we talk about the lower shows. It's like you get an extra $80. Like, no thanks. It doesn't really do much, right? But when you're talking like with some bigger paychecks, then it could be, I could actually take some notice there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was UFC 266, and then as we transition over to a man we already talked about, Jon Jones. And I don't know, what a weird story coming here where, Jon Jones gets his fight from UFC 165 against Alexander Gustafsson inducted in the UFC Hall of Fame. He seems, in good spirits, doing interviews like, by the second quarter of 2022, I'll fight Francis Ngannou. We'll get this all worked out. And then he gets arrested for like some domestic disturbance, and it's just, this guy can't. I don't know what's going on with him, but he needs better people, I think, with him, and he needs a strict something coming from the UFC, because they just kind of let this happen. We're like, oh well, ho hum. But if they were to even cut him, I think that may be the best for him mentally.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's like he portrays like, obviously whatever he's doing is not good, getting arrested and whatnot. I'm not condoning that at all, but it's like he plays this person like, I'm a good guy, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Just like, if that's who you are, just go full heel and just be you then, if that's who you actually are. You know what I mean? Just be a dick. Just be an asshole. Just be, I get in trouble. I do this. I do whatever I want, blah, blah, blah. And you know what? You'll probably get more fans from it. Now, like I said, I'm not condoning any like behavior like that. But don't put on a show and act like you're all this and that, and then go and continually do these things that you're always getting in trouble for. If that's just who you are and who you're going to be, just own it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he even to an extent kind of was owning it.
I didn't
at least with like the end of the Cormier fights, like he was kind of like, I'm a dick, I'll just be a dick now, and stuff of that nature. But you can't just keep getting yourself in these situations, whether it's last year kind of something along those lines in the pandemic, of course, the hit and run in New Mexico. I don't know, honestly, he's such a great fighter, but the UFC honestly at this point has to cut him, because I don't know what's gonna.
You think they're gonna cut him?
I think they'd have to. They're not going to, I think they have to cut him or something. I think they should. They need to find a way to send the message. Their mentality seems to be so lackadaisical. It's like, oh, Jon just being Jon. Like, oh, that's bad. But you know what? Like, he can't handle this time out here in Vegas. I'm like, he can't handle anything after a certain hour of time, no matter of what state, especially in his home state of New Mexico, where he resides and trains in. But I
wonder, like, I don't know. I wonder who are his influences around him. You know what I mean? I don't know. He's got to have some, or unless it's just him and he's the influence on everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, he just continues to find himself in shit, man. And just like, I get it. Once you're like a superstar and you're in the limelight, it's easier to get in shit because all eyes are on you at all times, but you look at all the rest of the fighters and this shit isn't happening all the time, right? So there's definitely something that he's doing or not doing to help his cause.
There's something along those lines where he's not being honest with himself. More importantly, he's in some sort of situation, and it's just every time I think we're going to give him a chance, he fails you over. And that's why I think the UFC should cut him, because he's just unreliable. Like, how can you market a big fight with him at heavyweight now where he may get himself in some trouble? If this fight's in Vegas, he may, get in trouble after the weigh-ins or anything like that, get arrested. Like,
it's kind of the same thing with McGregor. He always has shit going on. He's always getting into shit, punching old men at bars and throwing dollies through buses and
fighting MGK.
Yeah, getting into it with that guy. And there's always issues with him too. So I don't know if it's maybe, I mean, it's not just, I'm going to say like a stardom type thing where it's like you get this level of fame, but there's so many other athletes and fighters especially that don't have this. So maybe it is something to do with that. I don't know.
I think it has to do something with stardom. When you make that much money, you kind of just get bored, I think.
Yeah. And you just you think that you become this like, you're above everything else, you know what I mean? And nothing, you're kind of like an untouchable. And then you just kind of have that confidence and that chip on your shoulder. And that's just kind of, it just leads you to things like this that happen. So that is a possibility.
Especially in a sport as young as MMA, where the UFC is a star driven business, right? So McGregor can mess up forever. Jon Jones can mess up forever, and they're not going to do anything. Like, I think they should cut him because like Jon Jones, because you can't rely on someone like that. Conor, he may be crazy, but at least, you get him a fight. He's focused for that whole week. He may go act out after the fact, but that's not on UFC's time. That's on Conor's time. Yeah. And while I don't condone that, obviously that's just a part of kind of what Conor McGregor is. But Jon Jones will just, mess himself up or get, test positive for steroids before UFC 200, or, get in a hit and run situation in New Mexico and what have you. Like, I just don't know. I think the UFC doesn't need the headache like that. They got so many other fighters on the roster. I know they're not stars, but this is a promotional machine that can find a way. We'll just take one thing of one guy having a big win in that light heavyweight or now heavyweight division, and you can make them a star or find a way to market them as a star.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely can. That's their whole business of promoting. It's departing with somebody that has such a amazing history in that company as far as performance wise. So that's like, cutting that loose is cutting a lot of things loose. So that's probably where their dilemma lies.
I think, but I mean, it's not like the UFC's never done that before. I mean, they did that with Tito Ortiz, Ken Shamrock, guys that really helped build the promotion.
For sure. But these are all people that are, I think, we're past their prime. You know what I mean? They're using their names as names. But Jon's still undefeated, really. You know what I mean? And still the best in the world at light heavyweight, and now going to go to heavyweight. It's pretty crazy to see. So I think that's why he still has that, and that's why you see him and like you said, Connor, they're always going to get the star treatment.
Yeah, I mean, the charges here are a little more severe to me than anything, especially
what
domestic.
Did he do? I don't even know what he did. Like
we just know of the charge. One of them is a domestic
some of the vehicle, right?
Yes, something trying to use the vehicle as a weapon. But when you hear domestic anything in today's day and age,
but he tried to run somebody down or something with a car.
We don't know. We don't have anything other than what is said. We know this incident happened around 5:45 Nevada time, so like 8:45 here on the East Coast. But I mean, anytime you hear domestic anything, that just freaks promotions and things like that out. Like, oh my God, like that's not an easy one to overcome. I thought the cocaine's one thing, but the vehicular hit and run where he broke some girl's arm, that's another scary thing. But domestic anything, like that's how you lose your career.
Yeah, I mean, who was it towards? Has that been said yet?
I don't think we know that yet. At least I haven't seen. But I mean, he's up late doing something with someone that's.
It wasn't like his wife or something, was it? I mean, I don't know.
No, I don't think we have those details yet. It's still kind of early, right?
I guess we'll just have to wait and see actually what happened and how bad it actually was. I mean, it doesn't sound good, but like, if you got into like a he's at an after hours bar and got into it with some guy, and then, I don't know, he threw the guy into his car and they acted like that was his weapon. You know what I mean? Like that's still not good, but like, it's not nearly as bad as like, you beat like your wife or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
we have to wait and kind of see what actually happened.
Anytime I hear domestic anything, it's usually him and his wife. It's. I mean, Ray Rice lost his NFL career for that video of him punching his wife in an elevator. So hopefully it's nothing like that. But I know we wait and see, and it just continues to be a Shakespearean level tragedy of how talented this fighter is and how much he keeps just being his own worst opponent, really. Like no one in the cage has ever been a bad of opponent as Jon Jones is to Jon Jones.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I totally agree.
Yeah, so that's just the Jon Jones saga. I mean, the event he was at, the UFC Hall of Fame, was a really nice event. They put together some of the best videos I've ever seen. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but
I didn't see it, no.
But the highlight videos they did for everyone, like especially the Kevin Randleman one, and Dustin Poirier and his foundation got an award, and just some real nice. The GSP video was fantastic, and yeah, I'm happy the Hall of Fame is back, and they can do that again. And already said for July 2022 is when the next class will go in, and then as we transition, I mean, we already talked about some of the news where we know Aljo's out, interim title, probably Jan Sterling. That's pretty much all that's going on. Bantamweight's heating up, as we've talked about. But we transition over to Bellator, Josh, as they have their first show in England pretty much since the pandemic, with some fighters that are from the stateside on that card. But the main event, I think, is a fight that's really flying under the radar, and that's Douglas Lima versus Michael Venom Page, MVP for the Bellator Welterweight Championship. And I'm very excited for this one. One, it's airing live, like at 4. The main card starts at 4, which, these European shows, it used to be tape delayed.
Right.
So that's one positive, though it is Friday, so that's maybe a little bit more difficult. But nonetheless, live MMA is better than taped MMA.
For sure.
And 2, I mean, Lima's such a top tier welterweight that we've talked about before, a guy that really hasn't gotten the props. He's coming off losing his championship. I totally forgot he did lose it to Amosov back in June. So this is a real fight to get things going and another number 1 contender fight.
Yeah, and this is a totally opposite fight than his last one. You know, he had a guy who was a good wrestler and took him down every round and beat him up on the top. You know, we're not going to have that with MVP, and it's a rematch. And MVP is such a weird dynamic striker and is very hard to deal with, but Lima timed it perfectly. You know, there that knockout, it's like highlight level. It like kicked the leg out, and as he's coming up, knocks him out with the uppercut, and then finishes him off. And you know, since that, MVP's gone on a run again. Has it been the quality opponents? You know, as a Lima, no, but he still beat some pretty good guys, and he's looked pretty good. So yeah, it's an interesting fight. I'm stoked to see this one. I think it'll be, you know, more so of a striking affair. Yeah, I think it's another potential to be some fireworks.
It definitely does. I mean, especially for MVP, like, one, he's on his home soil. Two, he's fighting the only guy that's ever beat him in MMA, the one blemish in his win-loss record, and it was a devastating knockout. And, you know, Lima's been a guy that's been in that rematch scenario before, but he's the one trying to normally avenge a loss, especially the Rory McDonald one. But I mean, if you're MVP, this has got to really spark your tires up a little bit. He looked great against Derek Anderson, who's, I guess, a tough guy, especially in that Bellator division. Messed up his orbital bone really bad with that. But I just don't see him having the success against Lima. I think Lima's just such a different level of welterweight in Bellator.
Yeah, I mean, he was the top dog for a long time, and, you know, just recently coming off a loss. So we'll see how that plays into it too, coming off a loss and losing your belt, and how much, you know, more motivated he is, or not so much. We'll see.
And that's the thing. Like, Lima has been in this scenario where he has lost his belt before, and found a way to come back and through the ranks. So I think he's been in the sport so long where he's been through the highs of highs and the lows of lows. That's why I'm picking him. I think he's technically a little bit better, and he's just more MMA mature than I think MVP is. I think the big knock on MVP has been, since the Lima fight, he started to build himself up, but beat guys that he was so much more experienced than.
Yeah.
And I don't think you want to be in that scenario coming into it. As I said, Derek Anderson's a good opponent, but he needed a couple more Derek Andersons, I think, before he may have got this. He's really getting this because there's not many options right now for a potential number one contender, and they're going to England, and he's such a draw over there.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I get why they're doing it. So it makes sense. So why not, right?
Yeah, exactly. Why not? I mean, this is a card full of a mishmash of Europeans, and I mean, it's nice to see Bellator get over there and for a market that they are big in. And I mean, they're going to Ireland in November, and before you know it, we're hitting that Russia card. But that's just such a fight, that Lima and MVP2 fight, that's just really flying under the radar in a jam-packed week of MMA with tons of events going on. Yeah,
it is. I'm stoked to watch it, man.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, hey, watching it, as we said, watching it live at around, well, main card starts at 4 whenever it does take place. I think that will be a big deal for Bellator. And then, you know, Bellator, they move on to October 16th with the Nemkov Julius Angelikas, who's now coming in. Yeah, the replacing of Rumble Johnson, who hopefully he's okay. I know he had some real bad health issues, but I mean, that's when I know Bellator is going to really push. But they do still got Bader and Corey Anderson on the card.
Yeah, that's a good fight right there. So because it sucks about Rumble, obviously, but you know that I can't remember. How do you say the guy's name that took his spot?
Julius Angelikas.
Angelikas. I mean, there you go. It's a huge opportunity for you. You're coming into the Grand Prix, and you're fighting for a title. You know, so I mean, huge opportunity, huge.
One of the better fights on that card is Benson Henderson and Brent Primus at 155. That's a fantastic fight, but that is in a few weeks' time for Bellator. And you know, as we have said, Josh, this is a crazy week for MMA. Obviously, tomorrow we got the Contender Series with Aaron Jeffrey getting his second shot at getting a shot in the UFC. Right. As well, we got BFL having their 2 nights of shows on Thursday and Friday. Unified
on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Series CD on the main event of the Thursday card. I'm very excited for. This is his real chance to really shine and show out. Like, he hasn't fought since he fought at BTC 9 before the pandemic in February of 2020, and he's just getting better.
Yeah, I mean, it's his first loss coming off, but having a year and a half plus to improve and build on that, you'll see a whole different fighter.
Just even when we talked to him at the event, like, he's just laser focused in, like, same nice guy, but not the maybe jovial joking around. He's just focused in on coming back from BC with some championship gold.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a good night for him.
I think it will too. I mean, Cage Warriors has 3 nights of fights. Unified, as we talked about last week, they had their show, which unfortunately we lost like their main event, which was Shane Campbell and Michael. I have no idea what happened with Michael.
Something happened with Hill, and like the day of, he weighed in everything.
He weighed in, everything was ready to go, and he just pulled out with undisclosed reasons.
You don't know what that is. I don't know. It's Yeah, that's it, man. I mean, there's no off season in MMA. You know, it's always going, which is one good thing about the sport.
Yeah, exactly. There's always something and some sort of fight being made or event coming on. I mean, and there's also like a CFFC show like on Saturday before the UFC. So an early 1:30 start time. So that's going to be
different. Yeah,
it's different, but you know what? I kind of like that.
So. I don't mind the early ones, man. When we did the BTC one, I didn't mind it.
No, you get yourself your whole Saturday, and they can just kick back, relax, watch the UFC or whatever it may be. But and they put on such great shows, those CFFC promotion. But that'll wind us down here, Josh. I mean, it's I guess it's nice. It's Monday before the Blue Jays start a push for the playoffs. They got a big series with the Yankees, so I know I'll be tuned in for that because hopefully they can make the playoffs. If not, next year for sure they'll be a playoff team.
How many games left are there? 3, 4?
So they got 6. They have a series with the Yankees, and they got a series with the Orioles to close out the season.
And what are they, a game and a half back?
I believe right now they are, but how that American League East right now is just going topsy-turvy. The Blue Jays are just a game back thanks to them getting a win against the Twins, and then the Red Sox and Yankees, they played with the Yankees sweeping the Red Sox. So the Red Sox are now on the verge of being.
This is win out, man. 6 games straight, you're good to go.
That's what we're hoping for. Sweep the Yankees.
Yeah.
Sweep the Yankees. You got Baltimore. Those 2 losses against the Twins in that 4-game series really, really hurt them. But I think they're confident. Think they can make it happen. They got home field too. They're in Toronto for at least the Yankee series.
I mean, I'm hoping for the best, man. I've always been a Jays fan.
In Canada isn't a Jays fan.
Yeah, I know. My grandma, diehard Jays fan, but even more so hated the Yankees more than anything. So, all for the Jays.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest on the Yankees, but if it was like the Yankees and the Blue Jays that made the wild card and the Red Sox were on the outside looking in, I think I'd be more okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not the bigger on the Red Sox, but so I mean, if you want to take some time off from watching fights, follow this Jays playoff push because I know the diehard Jay fans are truly enjoying this off day right now before it gets crazy starting tomorrow.
Yeah, I haven't been able to watch much this year, man. I haven't watched barely any sports, to be honest, like other than fighting, and I can watch some hockey here and there, but everything else is kind of fallen by the wayside. But I do enjoy watching like the Jays and all baseball. But yeah, I gotta get back to following.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it now because it's really meaningful baseball.
Yeah, it's always more exciting.
The past 2 years has been a lot of non-meaningful baseball, so there's no need to watch it. But when it's meaningful baseball, especially this late in September, you got me hooked.
It's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, there's consequence at the end. That's all we're looking for. But well, Josh, that's it for us this week. We'll be back next week to break down all the happenings in mixed martial arts. So for the gentleman Josh Hill, I'm Jason Hagholm. Peace out, and we'll see you all next week.